Yeah, a tight turnaround. We've seen a few of these weeks now. Big game coming up Wednesday, and another opportunity to really try and reinforce, where we believe we can be and what we can achieve, and that's going to obviously continue into the weekend and into a big game against New England at the end of this. So 3 very big games, and it will start off on Wednesday night against a confident and bright Orlando group.
All right, we're going to go ahead and start with our Zoom room. Ben Wright, go ahead.
Yeah, Gary, I know I kind of doubled up on questions last time about being concerned, but kind of looking at this upcoming slate of games, I mean, it's playoff teams that you're playing against. It almost feels like, in a sense, that you're starting the playoffs now. Do you feel like, with a playoff spot locked in, that this is a good chance to, I mean, obviously go for results, but kind of fine-tune some of how you're going to approach the playoffs and what you want to see on the field?
Listen, Ben, I think you're absolutely right. Really, the opening statement should have been, yes, they're 3 playoff games, and there's a lot to be taken out of this, and confidence to be taken out of this leading into the postseason. Orlando are in a great spot. They've had a really good season. We're at home. We want to try and obviously be in a better position than we are in the standings for obvious reasons. But the most important thing on Wednesday is to put ourselves back into a position where we feel confident. We're underlining some of our qualities. We're making sure that all of the boxes are being ticked as we move towards the postseason now. Players healthy, players confident, players inspired, and players that believe that we can move forward and actually get ourselves to another final or win something.
And then, we've seen a couple managers around the league just talk about how many games you've played. I just checked. I think it's been 40 games in all competitions so far this season. It's about a game every 5 days. Do you feel like some of the issue that we've seen recently is just the amount of work you guys have put in, and how do you kind of balance that out, knowing that you're going to have games to play still, but you need to be able to put in a performance regardless of how tired you guys are?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. This season, probably more than any other that we've had, has been hugely challenging from scheduling standpoints and the number of games. We've obviously run into a Western Conference season, and the travel in that season was particularly tough. But the accumulation of games, the amount of intense competition, the League's Cup in itself, we played some very, very challenging games against some highly competitive opponents in some emotionally charged environments. There was an awful lot going on in a very short space of time. So I certainly wouldn't discount where the guys are and how they feel, to maybe 1 or 2 coaches that have put their hand up and made the shout for bigger squads and maybe, investing more in those squads. I completely understand that and would concur with that. When we get to this stage of the season, though, I do think there's almost a light at the end of the tunnel, and we're coming towards what we would class as the most enjoyable and exciting part of the year. So I think if there are any groups that are maybe feeling the pressure on that, it'll be the teams that have not got themselves into the postseason, and there's a lot of pressure now on those games to put themselves into 1 or 2 of those final places. For us, as we spoke about in your first question, it's about now finding the right combinations, the most complete group, the most competitive group, but in the most confident and positive mindset. And obviously that's where we want to be. I think we have a fabulous chance to try and put ourselves in that position. 3 big games. There's, if you look at the opponents that we could have faced, I don't think there's any more challenging games possibly, other than maybe Cincinnati, that we could have run into in these final games, where we can put ourselves in a position where we can say, you know what, we feel good about ourselves here. Results are important, but performances are just as important right now.
Ben, any more follow-ups?
Yeah, just one last one. I mean, we saw, I think you talked about Sam being taken off after the game. Shaq also came off. Were those just kind of trying to keep those guys ready for this upcoming stretch of games, or do you have any issues health-wise?
Yeah, no, none at all, other than Lucas, who's still working his way through what I would hope to be maybe Wednesday be a little bit early for Lucas, but certainly the weekend and beyond are probably the first times I'd look at Lucas getting back in the group. But everyone else is in a good place. Sam, if you look at his progress, I think I said it after the game at the weekend. He played 15 minutes against Kansas. He played 30 minutes against San Jose. He played an hour at the weekend. And that progress is taking place with regards to minutes and obviously continuity in the group, getting back to that match sharpness. Shaq has played a tremendous amount of football. He was moaning and groaning about a bit of tightness, so I got him off. Not because of how he'd played, because I thought he was terrific, but he's had a lot of football, as we've just spoken about, and Shaq could well have an awful lot to get through this week, so it seemed a good time to maybe getting out, and only because he'd made me aware of some tightness that he had, and no serious problem at all.
All right, we'll transition to Claudio Villalobos.
Gary, congratulations on qualifying for the fourth in a row and to the playoffs. I mean, even the least knowledgeable fan knows how difficult it is in the MLS to do it once a year, and let alone four times in a row, playing in both conferences. I mean, there's a lot of merit here for the team and you guys. So I congratulate you on that. And now, in hindsight of what happened before on the playoffs, what you think from the coaching standpoint needs to happen this time for Nashville to perhaps have better tools to make it a little further?
Well, listen, first of all, thanks for that, because I think it's a really good point that, you know, this group have competed in so many different circumstances. They've been adaptable, they've been competitive, they've shown great quality. To Ben's point, you know, we're into 40 games this season. And if you look at some of the teams that are maybe not going to make it, I tell you, there's a lot of teams that would look and say, I'd love to be in that position. And we have a chance, of course, of improving where we're at and where we can finish. So I'm extremely proud of what the guys have produced over the last 4 years. If we come into what is the now, the present, your question about what do we need to do, part of it was answered with Ben. I think we need to find, and I've just spoken to the guys about the weekend's performance and moving forward. What are the things that we're good at? What are the qualities that we have? Who are the players that are going to be most productive in the attacking areas? And how can we give those players the best chances to be successful? And I think the next 3 games we're going to get asked some serious questions. Teams that are not easy to play against, that have their own qualities and have their own creative group of guys. But they are the moments that test what you're about as a player. And it's not just about this individual. Hanny's good at a player. Hanny's creative and inspirational. Jacob can create. It's about a collective mindset, and not just in the attacking half of the field, but how are we going to start the game? How bright and purposeful with and without the ball can we be? And what sort of environment are we going to create, certainly at home, against some good teams? And I think that in itself inspires players. So these games are great games for us to have. I'm far happier about playing Orlando, Philadelphia, and New England than I maybe would be playing against some teams that have not got an awful lot to play for, or we look at and feel as though before the game's even started we should be beating. These are going to be good occasions. They're going to be exciting occasions. They're going to be situations that we are going to see post-season. One of these teams we are probably going to be matched up against in one way, shape or form. There's a very, very good chance. So this is now a time for us to really reinforce some of our qualities, and maybe mentally to feel good about going into the postseason.
Gary, when you look at the games coming up, you already mentioned all of it, and a team like Orlando, which should be 3 wins, 1 defeat, and 4 decisions. I mean, anybody could say, well, I mean, Nashville has a shot. Of course it does, especially at Johnny's Park. But how different is this team, the visiting Orlando team, from the ones you faced before, according to your scouting?
Yeah, look, there's been some really good games that we've had against Orlando, and they're always an ultra feisty team. You know that. They have some players in that group, and the balance of their group, I think, is very, very good. They've got a core of strong and determined players, but the likes of Torres and Angulo out wide have given them a lovely dimension to their play. The 2 fullbacks that I don't think we've run into, is it Thorkelson on the right-hand side, who seems to be playing more regularly? Very, very positive individual. As a fullback, it looks a very modern-day fullback. Attacking wise, looks aggressive, looks bright and purposeful. And Santos on the other side gives them some real nice balance on that left-hand side. So they've got some really bright and purposeful areas of their team. Are they any different, or individually maybe there's some players we're not running to, but I think this is the template and the format that Orlando have played with, and Oscar has played with in the last couple of seasons at least that I've seen. There might be 1 or 2 slight differences, but the point is they've always been bright, purposeful, technically capable. They've had a core of players that are ultra competitive, and they've had players in the team that if they can get in and around the goal, you should be fearful of. And that is no different. We beat them at their place earlier on in the season. If I remember rightly, it was a tough game. We maybe spent more time in our half of the field than we would have liked, but they'll have that in the back of their mind as well. They've given us huge challenges and difficulties at home in previous seasons, and we now have a really good rivalry with this group. We know that from start to finish, this is going to be a tough game. But in terms of preparation for the postseason, couldn't be any better than we're going to get.
Claudio, any follow-ups?
Yes, one final one for me, Gary. Obviously, the fact that they're in a better position in the conference right now, I'm talking about Orlando in this case, perhaps the other teams, that extra pressure that Nashville had in terms of trying to get a better position at the end, is that going to work? How to make that work against a group when they face this type of rivals?
Yeah, no, I don't think there's pressure. I truly don't now, Claudio. The pressure for a lot of teams is to make sure over the course of 34 games you're in that postseason, and then we enter into a very different competition. Yes, we want to be in a better position. I don't think we're going to look at these games at the end of the season and say we lost out on a top 4 position because we didn't beat second place Orlando. We didn't beat third place Philadelphia away from home. That's not going to happen. There have been games throughout this season that we'll certainly look at and say there were points missed out on. What we're going to look at right now is no pressure. Certainly the pressure that's created is internally from the team and within the group to be competitive and to get a performance out of our group, a consistent performance that can underline what maybe our aspirations are right now for the postseason. I would back my group, home or away, against any team in the Eastern Conference or Western to get a result. Fact. Home or away. Knowing what the playoff format is about, knowing what we have achieved and what we're capable of, knowing what players I have in this group, I back them wherever we are. I think the 3 games, as I've underlined here in this conversation, are a tremendous opportunity for us to feel good about ourselves, for us to make sure that wherever we finish in the postseason, we go into it with belief. And that's what these 3 games are about.
Yeah, as you guys know, we have a quick turnaround from last game. I think we're in the process right now of getting everyone's bodies back to where they need to be. And hey, this is going to be a very difficult game. There's no 2 ways to put it. This is going to be a fight. This is going to be one that whenever we played at their place in Orlando, we were able to get a result. But we know whenever that happens, these guys are going to be foaming at the mouth, ready to do whatever they need to come in here and get a result. So we're up for the challenge, and we're ready to sort of take on anything that they throw our way.
All right, we'll open it up with Ben Wright.
Yeah, Jack, we were just talking to Gary and kind of asked him about just, you guys have played, I think, 40 games in all competitions. It's about a game every 5 days. How do you balance wanting to play with energy and get results while also just dealing with the tired legs that come from one of maybe the busiest season you guys have had yet?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a point, and I think that is like a huge factor that goes into the preparation that we have. We would love to have a week off in between every single game, but that's just not the reality of it. I think that we have guys on this team that handle and treat their body incredibly well. We have all the facilities, all the training staff, medical staff that we need to be able to have quick turnarounds. So I won't ever sort of use that one as an excuse, like, oh, we have a quick turnaround from one game to the next. Well, you know what? Other teams have quick turnarounds. And we have all the resources to put ourselves above teams whenever they come to our place or we got to go on the road. We have a first-class team, first-class organization that doesn't distract us from the result at hand. And at the end of the day, it really comes down to the players going on the field and giving everything they can to find ways to get good results.
And then just looking at this 4-game stretch you guys have before playoffs, I mean, 3 of the teams are above you in the table, and then on decision day, Red Bulls could be in a spot where they need a result to get into the playoffs. So it kind of feels like, in a sense, these are all playoff games. How do you balance trying to get a result in those, but also trying to figure out and fine-tune how you guys want to play in the playoffs, and maybe kind of getting the performance on their field, regardless of the results, back to where it was in the League's Cup?
Yeah, I love that point, and I love the fact that we have these games against these opponents and this time to prepare us for playoffs. I think that some people might look at it, oh, it's a tough stretch. This is what we want. We want the ability to play these difficult games, especially leading up into playoffs, and really get a roll. So as we know, especially with any of the majority of professional sports teams, they get hot at the end. Whenever at the end of seasons, the team that win championships usually have that roll, sort of momentum goes in their favor, and that's what we want. And we want that against the best teams as well. And so playing these teams, I'm looking forward to it. It's definitely, I believe, an advantage and something that we can have in our favor, because we know at the end of the day we're going to have to play a lot of these teams again in the playoffs.
Ben, any follow-ups? All right, Claudio Villalobos.
Jack, you're a young player still, and this is a young franchise. Even though we're talking today about a franchise that has qualified 4 years in a row to the playoffs, how does that play into the locker room in terms of how do you guys feel? I mean, it's just Gary said something. I think he was well on point. There are plenty of teams, not only this year but the other years, that would have loved to be in your position. How did you guys feel about it?
I think what Gary said is 100% true. I think that we get caught up in this game after game, and we very rarely as players are able to take a step back and look at it. Hey, you know what, we've had a locker room that hasn't really had a lot of turnover from year in, year out. So a lot of these guys that have been here for 4 years. And what our group has been able to achieve for those 4 years is nothing short of exceptional. And so that's great. With that being said, though, we're not at the end of the year yet. We are in the thick of it. And, I mean, I just came from the locker room. These guys are hungry. They want more. We had video sessions where guys are still getting on each other, and the expectations is that everyone's going to be performing at their best, because we know, having been there 3 times in the past, and this is going to be our 4th time, that we won a championship. And we'll do absolutely anything it takes to achieve that.
Well, you stated now that the game is not over yet in terms of stuff to do. But I mean, when you look at the last game against Seattle, I guess it would be unfair to ask you to give me a percentage of the performance you guys had, but maybe you probably agree with us that it wasn't one of your best performances of the year. Now, and you already said that it's a quick turnaround to the next game. How difficult or how to do a quick turnaround in terms of performance to try to beat a team like Orlando, which has always been so difficult?
Yeah, 100%. I think that everyone on here and everyone that watched the game, and especially the guys in the locker room, know that that performance was not up to our standards. And you're going to have times like that, though. That Seattle team's a very, very good team, defensively coached extremely well. With that being said, though, I believe our biggest asset is we are able to turn around, whether it was Leagues Cup, the games just kept flowing, and we were able to get sort of in a really good run. This Orlando team is a very, very good team. I have nothing but really good things to say about them. And I remember years ago, whenever we ended up playing them here and ended up knocking them out of playoffs, that was one that was a great game for us, but we know that they're going to be hungry. And they have experienced championships, winning Open Cup last year. So this is a motivated team as well, and we're going to do anything we can to be prepared for it.
And one final one for me, Jack. I mean, I find myself, just to talk about myself, I'm sorry about that, just to give an example, sitting around my couch, following all these games, trying to find out who's winning, who's going to lose, who's losing the game, who's losing a position. Is that something to catch you up on well when you're home these days, trying to watch what's going on in the league and see what else is going on? I mean, is that something that prevents you from doing all your personal stuff?
Honestly, no. Honestly, I'm spending more of my time watching us and how do we improve and how do we play at our best so that whenever we run into one of those teams, we're playing at our best and we are in full throttle and doing everything we can to, like I said before, just perform our best.